Welcome back to Picks with the Professor, the sports betting show hosted by a real statistics professor. Jared, we got back going the right direction again.
Yep.
On the screen there, social won, the overall picks won. Still just trucking along. They're all plays at a nice little 5% ROI, up 16.7 units. Hard to complain.
No, hard to complain. And usually I don't come on here and complain, but I felt like we were really close to having a great day. Tech turning the ball over in field goal range with like a minute and a half left.
It's not just that they turned it over. Like if you're running an open field and some guy dives and punches at the ball, or you get clocked or something, it was like the quarterback was just like in the grasp and just being tackled and just couldn't hold on. Like it wasn't like it was on. Like it was a very weak fumble that I'm sure that poor kid has lost a lot of sleep over. He played really well. And so for that to happen, that was tough.
And Wyoming let us down. They had a lead with about a minute to go and managed to lose that one. And then I have no idea what happened to the Arkansas State game. I was at the Texas A&M LSU game, and I looked at my phone at halftime or at some point and saw Arkansas State was up by 20 at half. And I was like, oh, wow, this is great. And then they were trailing at the end of the third quarter. Anyway, so we still had a good week. It's good that all of those things can seemingly go against you and you still have a week where you're positive. But man, I feel like we were this close to having a really, really good weekend.
Yeah, folks, we are making a lot of money. If you're serious about making money, join us over in Dub Club. Honor Roll All Access package, folks. The key here is there's the last chance of this offer, November 11th, that is coming up to get the old pricing that was $34.99 a month rather than the pricing going forward, which is $49.99 a month. That link in the show description is the only way you're going to get it. That link, there's only one link out there. It's that link right there, and it gets you half off your first month as well. You get a Discord chat, great community, picks on every sport, all sorts of stuff that my models have produced, and I've spent a lot of time on the outputs on multiple markets, first fives for baseball, run lines and stuff like that, all sorts of goodies and detailed summary notes about positional strengths and quarterback ratings and all sorts of goodies. There's also sports specific packages. If you just want football, college basketball, or maybe if you're just interested in football and you're joining us late, you don't be concerned about paying full price with football. It's not the season, it's an annual package, so you would get the first half of next year as well. So I wish I could do it off season. That's just not in the capabilities of Dub Club, unfortunately, at the moment. So again, you get to next year as well. So a lot of benefits over there on Dub Club. Links are in the show description for that. Some quick reminders before we get into it, though, of course, about the model that I've affectionately named Sideline. It is a player-based model. Ratings reflect the current roster. The average grade's 100 higher, implies more points. We're directing an average game. One game, we don't know. We had some discussion about this in the comments. One game, two games, I have no idea what's going to happen. Because Notre Dame Navy, I think, was a great example of that, where there were a lot of things that pointed to that game playing out kind of like we hoped and we thought and the model thought. And Navy turned the ball over 6 times. It's like a whole season's worth of turnovers for them. One game, weird things happen. We're talking about the aggregate, and that's where we're at here with regards to why we make money. We don't make money because we know what's going to happen in one game. We make money because we identify what the right price or number is to make the bet. The model tells us if it's an A, B, C, love, like, or lean, we choose the plays. Cousin Jared, before we get into the midweek action, is there anything else to recap before we get to that?
I don't think so. Like I said, I was at the A&M LSU game. There were at times during that game where I thought both teams were the second best team in the SEC behind Georgia. And that was just crazy. And I think I couldn't even name all the teams in the SEC that have, one loss now. A&M, of course, with none. And then you got LSU, Georgia, Tennessee. I think the SEC race is going to be really interesting coming down the stretch. And we're going to get a chance to learn about, not just in the SEC, but I'm sure in other conferences as well. The tiebreakers. The tiebreaker scenarios that are going to come up when a majority of these teams quite a few of these teams haven't played each other.
And each conference just did something completely random and different from the others. It's going to be fun and terrible at the same time.
Yes. Yeah.
I will say that I think a lot of the conference races are going to be interesting because the fact that not everybody plays everybody. I think the Big Ten is going to be really interesting. Indiana's schedule is not very tough. And they've been great to us. We'll talk about Indiana again more later in the show, like we do every week, because they're winning for us. And, but of course, you've got the Oregon, Ohio State, Penn State up there at the top of that. You already talked about the SEC. The Big 12's ripe for chaos.
Yeah.
It always is. It always has been. So I think we're going to get the ACC we talked about last week. It's going to be real interesting as we go through this. So we're 9 weeks down, 10 if you count week 0 as a week. That wasn't even a week. That was just like
it wasn't
even an appetizer. It was like like a caviar where it didn't do much for you.
But it was football on your TV. So, we were all happy at the time, but now we can say, it wasn't that great.
Yeah. So we are rolling through this. We'll start off here. Midweek game Wednesday night, Jacksonville State and Liberty. Oh boy, Liberty losing to Kennesaw State had to be the biggest upset of the season. The biggest upset I can remember in a long time. Not only the fact that Liberty's undefeated or wasn't undefeated and Kennesaw State was winless, you were looking at it thinking, that's how it's going to finish. Like Liberty's going to run the table in this conference. This game against Jacksonville State was the one question mark. And you're looking at Kennesaw State thinking they're not going to win a game all season. And it reminds us why we don't put, any more than 5% of our bankroll in any one individual game, because we never know what's going to happen in one game. And, wow, I don't even know what to say about that other than just because did you have any thoughts on that? Because that was just bonkers.
Liberty had won 17 straight regular season games, I think. And if you had given me how many teams were there in FBS, if you would have given me 130 guesses, I don't think I would have said Kennesaw State being the team that ended that winning streak. As far as weird outcomes,
even though they would have played them because they're in the same conference, you'd have been like, maybe they played Texas in non-conference.
Exactly.
Maybe they played USC in non-conference. Who knows?
That's exactly right. We're gonna play the game where you look back, and I think Northern Illinois over Notre Dame has this wrapped up like the most obscure result of any game this season,
especially with how strong Notre Dame's looked since. So we covered that, and they looked great against Navy, of course.
But the other game that sticks out to me, and nobody remembers this now, Georgia State beat Vanderbilt earlier this season, and so me personally, that was my one that I had in mind, that being the weirdest result of the season. I may have
we were high on our boy Pavia and Vanderbilt, and then that happened, and it was like, oh, maybe not, right? And then,
Well, now I'm reconsidering it. We have 3 strong candidates for the strangest result so far this season. I did not see that Kennesaw State game. Giving me 100 guesses, wouldn't have thought that Liberty would have lost that game.
Jacksonville State, on the other hand, Cousin Jared, making you look like a genius, because we talked about Jacksonville State laying a big number. It was scary in the middle of the week last week, but we liked the fact that Rich Rod was going to go, and there's no stopping him with regards to that pace. As you could see there, top 20 in the country, and it didn't matter what the score was. He was going to keep playing his style of football until you got down to about a minute left. Sure enough, it played out just so similar to like you thought, and they got it done for us. These two teams playing this week, this is, in theory, the battle for the conference title. Of course, weird things can still happen. It's college football. But as you can see, the model thinks that Jacksonville State is actually a legit team, about average for college football standards. The model was very high on Liberty last year, has really soured on them this year, and is not that impressed with them. I think Jacksonville State's the better team by a decent bit. And you can see what the market is saying on this one. The fact that this is a pick'em tells us that the market is viewing Jacksonville State as the better team, of course, and then going on the road. The model thinks it's not just that they're the better team by a little bit, they're the better team by a lot. We're going to take Jacksonville State minus 110. This is one of our top plays of the week here. We've got 3 of them that we're going to give away on this show. We do have a couple of B grades that we absolutely love, a bunch of A grades. This is one of our top plays Wednesday night. Jacksonville State, pick'em minus 110 to go on the road and get the job done. Cousin Jared, tell us more.
You mentioned that Sideline has soured on Liberty, which seems to match the results because Sideline has been encouraging you to lay some large numbers with Liberty over the course of the season, and they've really been a little bit less than 50-50 in covering those. And so I think that Kennesaw State game was just, a manifestation of some of the Liberty not performing up to the expectations that
it was
had.
It was like it put all the pieces together, and boom, now you've got the full completed puzzle with that game. Like, oh, here's got some of their problems, and we're seeing it all come together now.
Exactly. And so I'm not sure if we've seen the bottoming out of Liberty from Sideline because, the Kennesaw State will make a big dip in it, but I'm still not sure that we've seen the bottom. Jacksonville State, on the other hand, they had Smothers starting at quarterback start the season. And then they had this, I don't even know who his name is, the starting quarterback. You can look it up real quick for Jacksonville State. He was an FCS transfer, I believe, and he has come in and he has looked great, almost better suited for this offense than even Smothers was. And, like I said last week, this Jacksonville State offense is just going to go. So I don't see Liberty being able to keep up in this one. I think it'll be close, but I think Jacksonville State, like we talked about last week, will put up a score or two in the fourth quarter to win this one.
No offense, to him or his family, but Jacksonville State quarterback Tyler Huff does really sound like an EA Sports NCAA created player.
He does
not sound like a real person.
Yeah,
and, but like you said, he's been doing a great job for them. Liberty, of course, with Salter at quarterback, is like their lone bright spot left. It's like the model's looking at that like he's good, and the rest of the team has really fallen backwards. Whereas Jacksonville State has a much better rest of the team, and then you've thrown a quarterback who's been playing really well. On top of that, again, gives them the upper hand. So we're going to take Jacksonville State here on Wednesday nights just to get the win. As the model says, they win 64% of the time. On Friday night, we have a top play that we like over on Dub Club. This is not one of the top plays, but it is an A grade in the San Diego State-Boise State game. We missed UNLV last Friday, in what I stayed up for the whole game, Cousin Jared. I didn't go to bed till 2 a.m.
Oh, man.
It was a fantastic game.
It was.
You can argue at this point it might have been the group of 5 game of the year.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure there will be one later. We talk about we love the Sun Belt, but the Sun Belt's more about the depth.
Yeah, Army Navy.
Army Navy.
Maybe. But
that's true.
It's not the count. Anyway, let's not talk about that. But
that was a fantastic game. UNLV couldn't quite get it done, but I think we were on the right path with plus odds in a game where we were like, hey, Boise State's a better team, maybe, but on the road, anything can happen. Maybe Boise State isn't the better team. We don't know. One of the things that I thought was really interesting was the fact that, you've got a Heisman candidate there in Genty who did not look worthy of that. Now UNLV did everything they could to stop him, and they did. What exactly does that mean at this point? What does that mean for San Diego State? I think that's the real question here. Can San Diego State learn from what UNLV did and slow him down enough to make him look human? And if so, they have a really good chance to hang in this game. Even if they can't, I like this spot for San Diego State. A little bit of a hangover for Boise State now. Coming back home after that big win, playing in the same stadium that hosts the conference championship game. It's a really big number here, 23.5. A-grade pick according to the model, which says that Boise State wins by an average of 17.7. So we're looking at this, 14, 17, 20, 21. Are pretty reasonable outcomes. Of course, Boise can win by 24, 27, 28 as well. It can get out of hand. And that's really the thing in my mind, keeping this from being a top play, is knowing that right tail is out there because Boise State has beaten some teams really badly. But after last week, maybe a little bit of a hangover spot. I don't say short week, but still staying on that Friday schedule. A lot of ways that this is just get the win and move on with life. Don't need to do anything fancy. They've been taking Genty out of a lot of these games here late when it's been decided, no reason to run the score. So we're going to take the big number, take the points with San Diego State. Cousin Jared, what's your take on it?
I agree with your last comment there. In my opinion, the way that Genty's been playing and what we've seen from them in games so far this season, if Boise State gets out to a decent lead, there is no reason to keep Genty in the game. There has been multiple games where he has not played the majority of the second half. And especially in that game against UNLV, you mentioned they kind of bottled up Genty in that game. UNLV really bottled up all of their offense. Boise only averaged 6 yards per attempt through the air. They didn't have any receivers that made any big plays. The quarterback had a couple of big rushes. Really, the difference in that game was Boise State 4 for 4 on fourth down, 3 for 15 on third down, but 4 for 4 on fourth down. So they were just able to get a couple of fourth down conversions there. I think San Diego State's headed in the right direction. Sean Lewis, was a great coach at Kent State, I believe. I mean, look at it now. Think about Sean Lewis had Kent State like close to going to bowl games. And that is unbelievable to think about at this point, to see what has become of Kent State since then. So I think San Diego State's going in the right direction. They easily covered against Washington State last week. I think Boise, coming off that big game, even if they got to a lead, not played Genty much in the second half. I think, what do we get? 23.5 here, I think is more than enough for San Diego State. Let's get a nice backdoor cover here in the fourth quarter.
Moving on to Saturday at noon, Minnesota, Illinois. Model says that Minnesota wins this by an average of about 7 points, that they win a nice 69% of the time. We said last week we thought Illinois was a little bit of a fraud. Models got them at number 68, and they were not remotely competitive against Oregon in a game that played out exactly like we expected, where we said, hey, there's a couple different ways this can play out. And one of them was Oregon kills them and then just takes the air out of the ball. That's what they tend to do when they destroy teams. And the Illinois might not be good enough and they could destroy them. And so, because I really just wanted to talk about Oregon, to be honest. That was really the whole analysis. Nothing else was just, I wanted to talk about that game. I also want to talk about the fact that, Oregon, we've gone over with them once and won, and we've gone under with them like 4 times and won all 4 of them. We're undefeated on Oregon totals. So that the Oregon's been really good to us with regards to the total. But again, I think that key takeaway was what you saw in that game was that Oregon exposed Illinois for not even being remotely competitive. And this Minnesota team is quietly solid. They've been a team that the model's been liking as either A or B grade picks as of late, and been, for the most part, getting the job done. They're 5-3. I don't think anybody's talking about them, but they're well coached, and we think they got a really good chance to go on the road and get this done. We're taking Minnesota minus 110. Pick them again, just like the Jacksonville State game, A grade. Because Jared, hopefully you have some better analysis on this than I've got.
Well, the first thing is that I feel like Sideline has taken a stance on Illinois. You look at Illinois, who they've beaten Nebraska, they beat Michigan. But Sideline is not giving them much credit for that. So maybe, a little bit of an indication with how those games played out. Also, they beat Kansas.
Looking under the hood, not just looking at the final score.
Yeah, and like Kansas, I think, is another example of that. Like Kansas gave that game away that Illinois won earlier this season. And they've also, they only beat Purdue by 1 point. I just, with Illinois, there's a lot of inconsistency, I guess, is what I'm going for. When you look at Minnesota, like really, they had the first week of the season where they lost to North Carolina, which you can go back now and say like, maybe that wasn't that great. Max Johnson played some of that game for North Carolina before he got hurt for the rest of the season.
It's also a weeknight, opening week on a weeknight. Weird.
Yeah. But then you're like, okay, Minnesota lost to Michigan by 3. Like, okay, they lost to Iowa, but then they beat USC. They went to Los Angeles, the big travel spot. They won at UCLA. They blew out Maryland. It's just like Minnesota just seems to be more consistent, and I kind of know what I'm getting with them, whereas Illinois is a lot more variable. So Sideline feels confident on Minnesota in this one, so I am good with laying the odds for them to get a road win here against an Illinois team that I'm just not sold on.
As we always talk about, of course, though, shop around, right? Every nickel you could save, every dime you could save can really matter. So you can find a minus 105. You can find even money. We are not trying to pad our record by finding the one obscure book that has the best price or the best odds. We generally take a consensus, or with money lines, we just kind of find whatever's out there, because a lot of times this early, there's fewer money lines, there's underneath places. But we're looking at just, is it readily available? We'll have one later today that we'll talk about being readily available as well. And so go find you the best number, gets you that extra nickel, extra dime, whatever it may be. If you don't have an account there yet, BetUS is a great place to sign up. 150% bonus on your first ever deposit, 125% on your next 3. So sign up with BetUS today. Add them to your repertoire if you have not done so already. Ohio State and Penn State. I assume this is Big Dude Saturday. This is probably the best game of the week. Silent has these teams at number 7 and number 8, really kind of souring on Ohio State here after that game against Nebraska, where it seemed like they should have maybe lost that game. I look at Ohio State, and at least what the model's telling us is this is a team that is very, very good on offense, very, very good on defense, but not elite at either. Interestingly enough, that is what the model thinks about Penn State. It's got them just neck and neck. I don't know who's going to win this game. I think it's going to be an interesting game. Everything would point to Penn State winning the game. I think that's been the case for the last, how many years now, Cousin Jared? 5 years? Where Penn State, this is the year, right? They were going to beat Michigan or Ohio State, and they've yet to do it. They brought in the new offensive coordinator. So, the numbers would point you one way. Can they actually get it done? That's a great question, a great discussion to be had. And I'm sure there's a lot of people watching this who are saying, absolutely, this is the year. And a lot of people saying, how we've seen this before. Cousin Jared, we don't actually care about any of that. We don't care who wins. We're going to play the total. We've got the average team having 45 points in this one. We're going to go under 47.5. B grade pick, but one that you like a lot. Tell us why you like this under so much.
I trust both defenses more than I do the offenses in this game. The second thing is both teams are dealing with potential injury issues. Drew Aller left the game early against Wisconsin for Penn State, probably questionable if he's going to play this week. Ohio State's starting to rack up some injuries along the offensive line. So if you talk about what is going to be, for a team like Ohio State, what's going to be most detrimental to their success on offense, they've probably got skill position players that they can just rotate in, and they're all pretty dang good. Offensive linemen's probably, usually a little less depth, just because you get to these younger kids come in on the offensive line. Sometimes they need just a year or two to develop physically before they can just really come in there and manhandle some of these Big Ten defensive linemen. So I think also the injuries.
You talk about playing in Conference USA, or the MAC or whatever, and it's a very different story. You get some of these big times. I mean, it is like grown men.
Yes.
And it's very different between an 18, 19-year-old and a 21, 22-year-old. That is,
and then like BYU even has old men.
Yeah. You talk about that extra COVID year and all the other things that have happened now. Like, you're getting it is a world of difference between that. So it's an excellent point. On that age difference.
And so I just, a little bit iffy on both offenses here. You mentioned that we only care about the total here. I might revisit a side on this game later in the week if we find out if Drew Aller is playing or not, because I think I do have more faith in him than I do Will Howard at this point. And where the line is currently at, even if Aller were to, it's announced that he's for sure playing and the line moves, I think there's still plenty of room where we could probably get value on
because our projection will move the same way since we've got him as questionable right now. So our projection would move, and we'd actually bump them ahead of Ohio State at that point. Again, this is the benefit of a player-based roster. This is not about everybody healthy. This is not about what you've done. This is about the fact that those offensive linemen and the depth or a little bit of lack thereof matters. And that's part of the reason we're bringing Ohio State's offense on a number 10, not manually. It's just the computer based off of how it's viewing these players by giving them different injury grades is saying this matters. An offensive line, especially the cohesion of that offensive line, matters a lot for football.
Yep. So let's lock in the under now, and then if if you're with us on Dub Club, watch for some news later this week. Might add a play on the side here. If you're not on Dub Club, get there so you can get the information as soon as we have it.
Great analysis by you. I have a follow-up question, and we're going to take this in a slightly different angle now. We talk about key numbers all the time. The upper 40s are, to me, the most confusing key number spot, because we all know, and if we don't know, we should know, right? How key 41 is in the low 40s. 44 and 45, I think, and 47, 48 are a little bit confusing to me, because a lot of that on which one is more key than the other, because fairly close has to do with how the game is being played out. If you have a game involving military academies where you think there's going to be a lot of fourth downs and it's going to be a bunch of touchdowns at 45, at 48 are more key. If you think it's about good defenses that get stops and force field goals, that 44 and 47 are actually going to be probabilistically more key, even if your brain doesn't like hearing that. So my question is at 47.5, do you like it even more at 48? Are you that, or are you thinking that these defenses are, like you said, what you trust, expect more field goals, and we've got the key number in 47 that is the more important? How do you feel about that?
I mean, I like it more at 48, but I personally don't think that's going to happen unless it comes out that Aller is close to 100% and is going to play. Because you look at both of these teams. I mean, we hit the under with both of these games last week. Yeah. Both of those totals came down throughout the week. I think something similar is going to happen here. So I think the only way you're getting 48 is if it's announced that Aller is for sure playing. So I do like it more at 48. I just don't think it's going to get there. I don't even know if we'll know for sure on Aller. He may be a game time decision. Who knows? Yeah,
that's a good point. And 47 again being pretty key. So going ahead and locking that in, at least getting 47 and the push protection on that. Again, depending on when you're watching this, who knows where the number's gone. Sometimes it moves fast. Sometimes it moves slow. Sometimes there's times where we get them recording and I look and I'm like, this number's already moved the whole point. And there's other times where nothing changes and then it's like throughout the week it's just a slow drip. And I looked back at a couple of those games, and it's the Ohio State one was one of them where it's like that moved like 5 points from when we started to the end of the week. So you just never know. So a lot of good discussion there, I think, in what might be the game of the week. To the 3:30 slot, sticking at the Big Ten, Indiana at Michigan State. First off, I just want to pat myself on the back for nailing the inaugural. I don't even know what year that was. 2022 Mississippi State Game of the Year, whatever we talked about.
Key number. Yeah, wrong key number.
Yeah, where we said like, hey, don't even worry about this. Like whether it's on the right side of 7 or wrong side of 7. I said Indiana by 14 or 17. Model said 15.5. They were up by 17 in the fourth quarter. They won by 14. And that was, of course, even without Rourke. And that was what the model had in it, knowing that we've got them as questionable now. We're still going to lay the 7. Model still says by 17.1. Here's the thing, of course, that's important with this is Rourke is a better quarterback. Don't get me wrong on that. If he is announced healthy, I have to assume this gets over 7. I will say the same thing I did last week. I'd still lay 7.5, but you might as well get the extra value, find the 7 and get in on it early. Even if he doesn't play, 7 is still a perfectly fine number to lay against a Michigan State team that is just average. And we saw that last week in the fact that they weren't even competitive against Michigan. Again, don't know if Rourke's going to play. If he plays, the model thinks probably closer to 20, not quite there. If he doesn't play, the model still thinks Indiana wins by north of 14 on average. Cousin Jared, what's your take on what's becoming our favorite team in Indiana, a team we've backed, 6-7 times this year, and they've covered for us every single time?
I have nothing to say about Indiana. If you're missing out at this point. Wasn't it great what College Game Day did with Coach Corso, though, bringing him back to Indiana there and having some of his former players and assistant coaches sit around and talk with him? I think that was great. The mayor declaring it Lee Corso Day, that was great. I just wish that, for you kids, this is an old man screaming off his porch section of the show. I just wish that you kids could have seen Corso back in the day because I, for one, enjoy Pat McAfee. Maybe there's some older members of my family who may take some issue with Pat McAfee's antics, but I'm just thinking, y'all love Corso, and all Corso was Pat McAfee like 30 years ago. They're literally the almost exact same person, and so I just wish you kids could have seen Corso in his prime because he was something else. So yeah, that was fun what they did on Game Day this past week.
Yeah, I agree. Of course, Corso in his prime was a lot of fun. Yeah, and so that was great. And Indiana just been so good to us. Another top play here for us. Indiana -7, a grade. Florida, Georgia, the other, one of the contenders, of course, for game of the week. Big question here: can Florida keep up? Sideline has Georgia up to number 1 in the country. Their defense is starting to look strong. The offense was never really in question other than a game or two where things went weird.
Yeah.
I think the model has Georgia at number 1 because nobody wants to be number 1. That's partially some injury things, partially some, Texas looked great up there. And then, got outclassed by Georgia, barely beat Vanderbilt. And of course, Vanderbilt's been a good team, but you know, in their own right. But like you said, they lost to Georgia State, so they definitely have some flaws. You know, Alabama looked great for a while. First half against Georgia was great, but the second half had concerns, and they've also had, you know, their fair share of issues in other games. You know, every team's had something, it seems like. And so we're back to Georgia at number 1. Here's the thing, though. I've been backing this Florida team a lot as of late. They've been pretty surprisingly good, 4-3 records. So you might not have noticed, but we took them in a ton of points against Tennessee. And again, they probably should have won, but I actually didn't even see the end of it because I didn't care because we got so many points. I was like, whatever, we've won. I can focus on something else. You know, they got the win for us against, was it Kentucky maybe on the money line?
Yep.
They've been
wasn't even close.
Wasn't even close. None of them have been close. They've been covered by a lot. They've been a pretty good team. Now, obviously, against Georgia on neutral site here, game in Jacksonville, as it is every year, going to be a little bit of a tougher challenge. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying they're going to cover this easily and they're going to hang in there and win this game or whatever. I'm just saying I think they're quietly becoming a good team. They definitely have questions as to how long the coach is going to last, but they found them a pretty good little quarterback, one that we talked about over a month ago as being pretty solid in DJ Lagway. And, you know, the model has him only a point behind Carson Beck with regards to how much he's adding to this offense. And so we've got this, you know, Georgia winning comfortably, you know, 11.6 on average. So, you know, 10, 11, 14, 7, these are all pretty reasonable options. We're getting 17 with Florida. I think it's just too many points. We're going to take all the points. Maybe Georgia runs away with it, but A grade pick from the model here. Florida's been good to us, and at this point of the season, I like to kind of take the teams that have been good to us and the teams the model still likes. The model sometimes will shift on a team and say, this is not good anymore. The numbers, the value's gone or whatever. We go the other direction. But if the model's still saying to ride it, I'm still going to keep riding Florida. What's your take on this one, Cousin Jared?
Florida has 3 losses to the number 5 team, the number 7 team, and the number 10 team in the country. I don't think anybody is going to, you know, put up much of an argument that, you know, losses to Miami, Texas A&M, and Tennessee are bad. Like there's nothing bad about that necessarily. Maybe the most impressive thing out of all of that is they scored 17 points against Tennessee. That is the second most points that Tennessee has given up all season. Like, I know they didn't win the game, but I've been impressed with them. Even though I lost to Tennessee, I was impressed. Not impressed with the first 2 losses, but I was even impressed with that loss to Tennessee. I just think this is too many points for a rivalry game where I know Georgia had a bye as well, but Florida's had a bye to try to scheme up everything they possibly can. You know, we've had at least one full game of DJ Lagway against Kentucky for Georgia to look at, but still, like, you're just scratching the surface of what a player like that can do. I'm sure that Florida's going to be able to put in all sorts of wrinkles. I think that with the way Florida's played this season, I don't think they're going to give up. And so I think potentially a backdoor cover here. It's just too many points for a team that Sideline has for number 14 in the country, even though it is Georgia. But you pointed out Georgia's good. They're not perfect, maybe like some of the past Georgia teams have been. The last thing I want to add on this, let this be a lesson, Florida. If you want to fire your coach before they do it before they give them the chance to crawl out of it. And I guess, you know, I'm probably preaching to the choir here to a Baylor person. But
we will discuss this later, the exact same thing.
Yeah. So if you want to get rid of coaches, do it, because like Florida's looked good the past month. And so, you know, they're probably still going to fire the coach at the end of the season.
And you don't want to lose. You don't want to lose Lagway to the portal. So you don't
want to lose Lagway to the portal. I think some people would argue, well, Florida, they don't have a good incoming class. But man, when you've got a good quarterback like that, it's tough because he's maybe just as important as more important maybe than an entire class potentially. Yes. He could be that valuable.
Well, the transfer portal is so valuable, and there are coaches who are having success just by utilizing that. Colorado, for instance, and I know that, at this point, if you're a Deion hater, you can agree with him and his antics and whatever. The way he goes about things is completely different than you have to acknowledge that he's having some success there with the program that was left for dead. And, he's doing it just off the transfer portal. And that sort of thing is going to be appealing if I'm a transfer,
Mm-hmm.
knowing that a guy like DJ Lagway is there and just only going to get better as time goes along. And so, maybe you don't bring in the best freshman of the world who was going to sit the bench anyway, but maybe you get a heck of a good, transfer haul. So a lot happening there for sure. We're going to take the 17 this week again. Just kind of too many points. A Florida team that, as you mentioned, with 3 really impressive losses, even though only 4-3, the model stalls at number 14, just because the fact that it's not Daniel for that. The way they've played a tough schedule, and the way they're playing right now, they look really good. They're moderately healthy, and only a handful of teams. There are a handful of teams that can't say that at this point. So, no disrespect to Georgia, I think it's an interesting point. Talking about Georgia's comparing them to previous teams, we've done that all season. Where we've said some of their previous teams were just a tier above. And this year, I'm not sure anybody's in that tier above. I think there's a bunch of really good teams. I think Georgia's one of them. I think they're a better team than Florida for sure. But 17 is just too many points. We're going to grab all the points in that one. 8 grade. And then we've got 5 night games to cover. We're going to start off with Louisville, Clemson. Because, Jared, we were talking about the night slate. It doesn't have maybe a must-see game, but it's got a handful of games that might be really good that are semi-intriguing. This night slate here for our first Saturday in November is definitely about quantity over quality. And I think this matchup kind of summarizes that. Louisville and Clemson, Sideline has them both top 20, but outside of the top 10. Both these teams are good. Neither one of these teams makes you, gives you the feeling that they could make a run in the college football playoff. And we got a lot of that kind of happening Saturday night. Good, but maybe not playoff caliber type games. Clemson's got the better offense. Louisville's got the better defense. According to Sideline, what a transformation for the Clemson offense, which we've talked about sparingly on here since the start of the season, but it has really come around. We've got this as a fairly close game, Clemson being the slightly better team at home, but the market loves Clemson and or doesn't love Louisville. I'm not really sure which one it is. We're going to take the 11.5 Louisville A grade play as the model thinks they win only by an average of 5. Cousin Jared, what gets you excited about taking this many points?
We'll do everybody's favorite thing. I'll do the schedule game here real quick. Let me take you through Louisville's last 5 games. 1 score loss to Notre Dame, nothing to be ashamed of.
Nope.
1 score loss to SMU, nothing to be ashamed of. 1 score win. Yeah, 1 score win over Virginia. 1 score loss to Miami, nothing to be ashamed of. Boston College, 1 score win over Boston College. You know what? I think this is probably going to be a 1 score game, if I had to guess. And so if we're getting 11 or whatever it is, I like my odds because Louisville is very adept at playing these 1-score games, even if they don't pull them out necessarily. Clemson, on the other hand, and I'm not disagreeing with Sideline on Clemson. Clemson could be very good because they have been taking care of business in a convincing manner. There have been none of their games since that opening loss to Georgia that have been particularly in question at any point during the game. But let me just read off the teams that they have played, and I want you to help me determine who is the best team that Clemson has beaten. App State, NC State, Stanford, Florida State, Wake Forest, Virginia. NC State, maybe?
It's NC State, Wake, or Virginia, but I don't really feel confident about any of that.
Yeah.
All 3 of those teams are okay. Louisville's better than all those teams.
Yes. There we go. So I think this is going to be I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be a 1-score game, as I evidenced with Louisville there. I think we're going to learn a lot about Clemson. If Clemson demolishes Louisville the way that they have the rest of these teams on their schedule, then I think I'm taking them a little more seriously, maybe as a challenger to Miami in the conference championship game. But yeah, man, I still have a little bit of doubt on Clemson. They could be really good, but they have a chance to convince me this week. But I think it's going to be a close game, 1-score game. So give me the 11.
And I think it's a great point to go through those losses. And I see a lot of Florida and Louisville, a lot of comparisons. And obviously, Louisville doesn't have the hotshot freshman quarterback like Florida does, but the same sort of thing where it's like, you've got 3 close losses to all top teams. Like SMU at this point is coming around and the model's really high on them, got them back in the top 15. Notre Dame is, like we talked about, one of the top teams at this point. They're really taking care of business outside of that one weird game. And then Miami, who's been just, a juggernaut on offense. And again, they hung with them in that game. They hung with them punch for punch, and I don't see how Clemson is better than any of those teams. Maybe they're on the same page with SMU, at which point, like you said, okay, they can lose by one score then. That's perfectly fine with us getting 11.5. There is a possibility of something late happening. Again, there's no such thing as a lock in gambling. So could this lay in 14? Absolutely. It could be 7 late and the model says 5.2 on average and the model look really smart, be right on, and then something late happen and it's 14 and then boom, now all of a sudden we've lost. So things can happen, of course. But in general, Louisville's got a shot to win this game. So this is one where, too, sprinkling a little bit on the money line, I don't even think is crazy, or even a first half money line, and just saying they can hang around for a bit. If it's tied at the half, no harm, no foul. But these two teams are a lot closer than the market thinks, according to Sideline. To two teams who are playing slightly different styles of football this year, Wisconsin and Iowa. Wisconsin's still the same sort of, the defense is better than the offense, and Iowa is still the same. The defense is better than the offense, but the degree to which that is true, I feel like, has changed. Cousin Jared, Iowa's defense ranked number 15 according to Sideline. That is insane.
What a precipitous fall off.
and it's not that the defense is bad. The defense is still very good. They don't give up a lot of points due to that pace, as you can see. They're number 129. So they're still playing very slow. Their offense still is fairly methodical, so it limits possessions. But that offense at number 32, they've been an over machine for the most part this year, scoring points, doing it in just a little bit of a different way. We're actually not going to take the total in this one, even though I think the total is very interesting because of the history of these two teams and the way they like to have played football in the past. But we're going to take Iowa. They win, according to the model, 69% of the time. We're going to lay minus 164 with Iowa. A-grade pick, according to the model. I like this pick because there's one extra thing the model doesn't know. And this is the benefit of having the show, talking about these things, you sticking around, viewer, for an hour or more while we, hopefully provide you with good entertainment. The model knows a lot. It's a player-based model. The model doesn't consider necessarily the effects that Wisconsin might have in losing that game last week to a very good, very physical Penn State team. And then now having to go play Iowa. I think that's a really tough spot for them. And so I think Iowa makes a lot of sense here. And the model thinks that they win more than the implied odds. And that's a smart pick anyway. And then that's just, to me, the cherry on top of why I like it even more. Cousin Jared, how do you see it?
I would agree. And also add that Iowa, beat the poo out of Northwestern and didn't have to do much in the second half of that game. So maybe, keep their starters a little bit fresher. They're coming off that big win against Northwestern. The other thing I would say is with Iowa, they have the loss to Michigan State. Definitely, we backed Iowa in that one, thought that they would win that game. On the whole, Iowa has been great to back this season. Last season. Yeah, they crushed Troy, they crushed Minnesota, they crushed Washington. They have been a good team. And I have tried very hard this year not to let one game skew my thoughts of a team. On the whole, Iowa has been great to back this year. The one loss to Michigan State there leaves a nasty taste in your mouth. And I promise, that's going to be the first thing I think about probably when I think about Iowa, at the end of the season. But I have to maintain that big view. And on the whole, they have been great to back. And I think it's going to be the same thing. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Iowa wins this one by 2 scores.
And, I think we said the same thing last year, that Iowa was great to back. I think they didn't cover in one random game. That was a disappointment. But again, other than the teams that they're outclassed against, they have been a great team to back. And it's hey, just ignore that one. And then you do the other 8 and you go 8-1. And that's, pretty dang good, right? No one's going to complain about that. So, I completely agree. I'm not really stressing about it. I think that Michigan State game is part of the reason why Iowa's defense is not top 10, because Michigan State, again, a program we think is going in the right direction, but you saw what they did against Michigan. That they did that against Iowa makes you a little bit concerned about the defense, maybe taking a small step back, still being very, very good, but maybe not quite that elite level that it's been in years past. But it's made up for it by the fact that they finally have a competent offense. The worst unit on this field is not Iowa's offense. It's actually Wisconsin. So we've got Iowa winning this, laying a little bit of a price here at minus 164. 7:45 p.m. Eastern. We're going to go back to the total game here in Kentucky and Tennessee. Take the under 45. The other B grade pick that we've got for you, because Jared, one you like a lot. We've been backing the unders in both of these teams a lot this season. It's been pretty good to us. Tennessee with the number 4 rated defense. I mean, that is just insane after what we've seen the last several years. Yep. The other thing to comment on, Kentucky, number 1, their pace, dead last. Also, Kentucky's defense taking a big step back. I remember last year, Kentucky's defense was graded a lot higher than this.
Yeah.
You know, also taking a step back, the offense, number 102. Yeah. That is abysmal for Power 4 standards, for SEC standards. I don't see how Kentucky scores in this game. We're going to go under 45, B grade pick. Cousin Jared, you were your SEC guy, so I'm hoping you have some good analysis for us here on this one.
Yeah, we talked a little bit earlier about Florida putting up 17 on Tennessee, and that was the second most points that Tennessee has given up this year. Number 1, by the way, is Arkansas, who scored a grand total of 19 against Tennessee. So Tennessee's defense really good. I will tell you now how many points Kentucky has scored against FBS teams this season. 6, 12, 20, 13, 20, 10. Kentucky may do good to get to 10 in this game.
I think that would be good for them.
And as Jake has told us that when he was on the show earlier this year, Tennessee's offense still probably overrated at this point. Are all of the tools and the potential there? Yes, but it just has not been realized yet. To me, this feels like a 31-10 game. And I have zero faith in Kentucky scoring enough points to get us over this number.
Model projects 32-10. 32 is going to be a little bit harder to get to. I think 31 is probably more likely. So we've got this more in the low 40s. Again, we talked about 44, 45 are your key numbers in the mid 40s. And so we get the win on one, push on the other, and then the win on the key number of 41 in the lower 40s. This game might not even get to 40, to be honest, because I'm not sure Kentucky scores.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, we've got it at 45. If this goes to 44, I'm still playing it at 44. If that's the best you can get, I'm still all for it.
Yep. TCU and Baylor, big rivalry game here. A lot of rivalries here this week. So, maybe a little bit of a weaker slate with regards to the number of games, a little bit weaker slate, in the evening, but another rivalry game here, one that may not make your television because it is a tier behind with regards to the quality of competition. We're going to go with Baylor. They win, according to the model, 66% of the time. We're going to lay minus 135 with them. Again, the A grade threshold for this for every single game available on Dub Club for this one is minus 151. So, for example, as long as you're getting minus 150 or better, that makes Baylor a smart play. Baylor's offense has looked really good. Other than that, all of the units on the field are just meh. Baylor's offense might be the difference at home. Cousin Jared, do you have any insight, or are you just going to flip this right back to me?
Oh, no, I would love to just flip this right back to you. I mean, I have been impressed with Baylor's offense. I've been impressed with the strides that they have made. And to your point, not sold on TCU's defense. Still, we've talked about that a lot this season. I guess I would have thought that TCU's offense would be a little bit better. So this is the thing where I kind of lean on sideline looking under the hood to be like, TCU's offense not that great either.
It's the pace that's driving the points.
Okay. So it's just, I feel like there's only one group on the field that's, fairly well above average, and that's Baylor's offense. They're at home. Sure. What do you think?
I could talk a lot about this. We've talked about this via text and live as well. We mentioned it earlier, right? If you want to fire the coach, you just need to fire the coach. And I thought that's what they should have done with Aranda, and I still stand by that. I think they got an offensive coordinator, and I knew at the time they had an offensive coordinator, a guy that, because Jared, you are familiar with.
Yep.
It took a little while for things to click. I think the other problem was, I don't know if it was how much of it was taking time to click, how much of it was Aranda's influence on the type of play. I don't know the dynamics there. Was he trying to tell them to run more or not? But we were trying to be a running offense early in the season, and the passing game was much better. Sawyer Robertson is the best player on that offense for them and helps open up the run game. And they finally figured out what they're doing on offense, thanks to hiring a very good offensive coordinator. Of course, Aranda has taken over the defensive play calling, and the defense, according to Sideline, their defense is the worst unit barely of all the units on the field here. So I stand by. I don't really think it's a good head coach, but when you have a head coach who hired a good offensive coordinator, the offense looks better. this Baylor team is on their way to making a bowl game at 4-4 after being left for dead. They blew the Colorado game, but they've got some winnable games left. This is one of them. I'm not sure they win necessarily, but the model says they win 2 out of 3 times. And again, the fact that the offense is actually doing what I was saying they should have been doing from the start, it is paying dividends for them. And like you said, it's become impressive with what they've done here in the last couple of weeks. This TCU team, I think, is just very meh. They should have lost to Tech in a game that they were favored a lot by and needed some luck to win. A Tech team that Baylor just absolutely dismantled. So I think there's a lot of reasons to like Baylor in this one.
I think that that Baylor loss to Colorado on that Hail Mary there at the end, I wonder how we would be talking about both of those teams differently if that outcome would have been different. I think we'd still be impressed with Colorado, but I think we'd be a lot higher on Baylor than we are.
I think we'd be more talking about Colorado as the ascension from a rough start, because we'd be talking about the Nebraska game and the Baylor game being early, and then what they've done since then coming on. Whereas now you kind of just ignore that a little bit more, and it's more of a whole season story. So I think that the type of narrative changes there. And Baylor at that point, would be 5-3, and then the winner of this game is bowl eligible already with a whole month of the season left to play. So what could shoulda, woulda, coulda, I guess on that one. We're gonna lay it with Baylor. We do have one more pick for you. It's a top play, so hang in there. I'm not going to spend too long on this slide, but if you are not interested in the full package of Dub Club, I want to remind you that you can support the show. If you're still watching this at the 50-minute mark, we're clearly giving you some good entertainment. We would appreciate you hopping over and doing the picks only package. It's our cheaper package, just the picks, no extra details. You get the top play, couple plays on most days. On a full slate of Saturdays, you get more. You get all the other picks as well if you want more of them. So you can delineate between playing fewer plays, playing more plays. We've got 2 promo codes for you there. You can hop in and just pay for a month at $10. And again, we would greatly appreciate your support there. Again, this is what I do 24/7 outside of taking care of the little one. And if you've been watching the show for a long time and you've been meaning to, right now the promo code only 12 gets you a year for only $99.99. So a lot of reasons there to jump on board, and we appreciate your support if you have been enjoying the product that we are putting out and hopefully helping you make money with all these great picks we've had this year in college football. But that'll take us to our last pick, Pittsburgh SMU. A top play for us. We're going to lay the 7 with SMU. Sideline says 17.7. Cousin Jared, this would be a good round 2 for the Mississippi State a play of the week here, where there are a lot of 7s out there. Go find you this. Hopefully there's still 7s out there. We sent this out to Dub Club. 3 of the big 4 domestics. Our friends at BetUS had it at 7. So there are a lot of 7s out there, at least as the start of this recording. Go get the 7, get the extra value. If you're only looking at 7.5, 8, 9, where this number, higher than that should be, that's not the key number you need to worry about. It's 14, it's 17. It might even be in the 20s. This Pittsburgh team is a fraud. They are not as good as that 7-0 record. You can see here that Sideline has them ranked 55th. If you've watched Pittsburgh, if you've seen other games have played out, they've won a lot of close games against mediocre teams / in lucky fashion. SMU is the real deal. They finally got it back together after a very rough start. They've got the quarterback situation straightened out. Nothing against Stone, who was a fantastic quarterback, but Jennings wasn't that far behind him and a better fit for the question marks that SMU had on the offensive line. This SMU team, not good enough to win the national championship, but good enough to be one of the top teams here. We have them at number 12. We've got SMU at home running away with this one in what's going to be one of the bigger games of their season in what's become a really fun ACC. Because I know you love this one. Tell us why.
Yeah, we talked about Clemson, and with my eyes, Clemson looks good, but I have doubts about how good they are. With Pittsburgh, with my eyes, they're not good. I mean, not that they're not good, but they're fine.
Okay.
Yeah, they're fine.
They're a solid team.
Yeah, they're not a 7-0 team. And I mean, 2 of their wins are over an FCS team in Kent State. They should have lost to Cincinnati. They only beat Cal by 2 at home when Cal coming off the Miami game, traveling across the country, only won by 2 points. They had 3 pick sixes returned for touchdowns against Syracuse last week.
It seems impossible.
It does seem impossible. I think SMU is the team that kind of puts the period on is Pittsburgh going to hang around in the ACC? I think SMU will dispel that notion. I think SMU is going to win big. If they, I mean, SMU won a game where they had 6 turnovers this past week at Duke, 6 turnovers, and they still won the game. I just, if SMU doesn't win this game handily, it's because something crazy has happened with turnovers, like has happened in Pitt games this season and SMU games this season. That's I think the only way that Pitt stays in is they've got to get more than a couple of turnovers from SMU.
I was going to say, we talk about how a game can lose. Like that's the number one. I mean, anything can happen in sports, right? I mean, the Kennesaw State last week, right? We'll be citing this example forever, but that's the obvious way is SMU can be a little turnover prone. Pittsburgh's had the turnover luck. If that carries out and this is a 4 turnover, if Pittsburgh's +4 in turnovers, this is going to get scary. It's going to be a tight game, and I'm not sure SMU is going to escape with the win, much less cover the 7. That said, as long as there's not crazy turnover luck, which has been the fuel for Pittsburgh, in some of their wins this season, this SMU team should just really outclass them. So we love the 7 here, laying it with SMU. Cousin Jared, we have made it through the entire show. We've made it under an hour with 11 picks on the show.
The second time in 9 full weeks of games that we have made it through under an hour. I know.
I love how you just know that off the top of your head.
Yeah, well, I mean, because it's a big deal for us to go less than an hour. So yeah, I usually remember that, but still feel like we got a lot of good discussion in.
Yes.
So there you go. I hope everybody found the value in this, and if you want more of this, go join us on Dub Club as we've got up here on the screen right now.
Yes, we're always in there chatting, giving these insights as much as we can, again, to help you become a smarter, better, make better bets. Yeah, a little fun with alliteration there. Otherwise, though, Cousin Jared, last shout out to BetUS. We again thank them for helping us keep the lights on here. Otherwise, though, do you have any parting words for the viewer?
No.
All right, well, let's do it then. As always, of course, we wish you the best of luck. Quick reminder, college basketball starts in a week.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And also NHL. And clarify for the viewer what you're doing with the NHL picks.
The NHL picks are TBD right now.
Okay.
If you're with us on Dub Club, you know exactly where to go to find them.
That's just what I was going to say. The NHL model is yes, it is something that is available. There's a lot of stuff going on right now. Baseball's still going on. College basketball is about to start. There's lots of irons in the fire. I'm speaking for you here. There will be some work done on the NHL model. What is currently being spit out is available for our Dub Club people. So if you have a hankering for NHL, it's there.
Yeah, it's as we talk about with all the player-based model, but it's a young model in its lifetime, and so there's more aggressive adjustments and reactions that I'm tweaking because I'm just trying to what I think I have right now I think makes sense. I think tonight's been a pretty good night here for us in the 4 games with regards to how it's performed, but or the 3 games, I guess the one just started. We've got that as well. And we'll have more shows with college basketball coming. We'll have, mostly the plan is for daily shows where we'll do college football, one of the days a week. And then the other days a week, we'll do college basketball. So we'll have something for you here every weekday morning. Kind of like we used to now that we're, we'll get back in the swing of that. So if you like our content, you like college basketball, a lot to look forward to. And again, we have a college basketball specific, just that sport only. You get some big discounts, folks. If you just look into the year-long discounts, you can get it's basically like half off, in some of these things. So a lot of discounts available for you. If you're curious about those discounts, of course, you can always DM me on Twitter. Otherwise, though, again, we do wish you the best of luck. We thank you for watching, and we remind you that you can eat your betting money, but please don't bet your eating money.